I do not own Star Trek, or any of the related characters. Star Trek is a mark owned by Paramount. This story is a work of fanfiction and is for entertainment only. I am not making profit from this story. This is a tribute. All rights of Star Trek belong to Paramount. This fanfiction takes place between the second and third movies of the Kelvinverse.
Star Trek Reloaded, Chapter 7. A no-win scenario. New Volcano was a few dozen minutes away now. Chekhov watched in dismay as the entire sector was virtually free of any Starfleet activity.
Captain, from the dispatches we receive it seems that everyone is looking for us in the Teller area.
Yeah, someone distracted them with false information.
Uhura looked at Spock, the young Spock, and cracked a smile. As if embarrassed, the Vulcan rose from his seat and moved towards Kirk. With his arms folded behind his back and his legs slightly apart, assuming the most formal posture possible, Spock turned to the captain.
If you allow me, I would like to express my extreme disappointment with my father's behavior.
Spock, please.
No, Captain, please let me finish. I am extremely saddened by the fact that Sarek's action could, at first glance, appear to be dictated by.
He struggled to continue.
By emotion. Furthermore, his reference to the protection of my person is totally out of place and. Spock.
The elder Spock's tone did not allow for any replies.
We have other things to think about. Please sit down and continue your work. Now.
The young Vulcan turned almost ashen but, lowering his head, he returned to his post without another word. Kirk looked at the ambassador, blinking in amusement. The Vulcan from the future simply closed his eyes and shook his head, almost imperceptibly.
We are in high orbit on New Volcano. Not B's spaceship is small enough to be docked by the Shuttle Bay transporter. The whole operation will only take a few minutes.
3 minutes later, the small 30th century ship materialized in the hangar.
Chekhov, take us away from here at maximum warp.
Captain, the planetary defense system has locked on to US.
Sulu looked from one monitor to another.
Photon torpedo incoming.
Shields full.
A few seconds after Kirk's last command, the ship was shaken like a twig by the explosion.
Direct hit, sir. Shields at 80%.
Chekhov, this curvature?
The captain shouted towards the helmsman.
A matter of seconds, mister.
Another torpedo hit the ship.
Shields at 53%, they are high-powered torpedoes. One more direct hit and we'll take some real damage.
Thanks for the news, Spock. Chekhov.
Kirk didn't have time to finish the sentence before they were already moving away to Warp 4, outside the New Volcano solar system.
But it's just a wreck. A damned wreck.
McCoy observed Notby's shuttle with dismay.
And you want us to believe that you were traveling through time with this water heater?
Notby looked at the doctor furtively.
I understand that the situation makes any formality out of place, but I would like to remind you, Doctor, that you are talking to a captain.
These two nuts happen. As far as I'm concerned, you have yet to be born, and I certainly won't take orders from someone who, at the moment, is just vague genetic material in the semen of a grand-grand-grand-grandfather.
For that matter, I don't get much pleasure in being insulted by a crazy doctor, dead from centuries, as far as I'm concerned.
Stop it, please, gentlemen.
Scott pronounced the word, gentlemen, slowly.
We are all working towards a specific goal, together. And, Doctor, with all my goodwill, I don't understand where your sudden expertise in space-time ships could come from.
The engineer returned to observe the cockpit of the shuttle.
It's fantastic. I only recognize some of these instruments, or at least I imagine what they could be used for, but others are amazing, beyond anyone's wildest dreams. Designer of our era.
Lorem ipsum.
She served well, with honor, but don't study her too much, Scott. In any case, only this will be enough for us, and it's better if you forget the rest.
The captain of the future unhinged a half-destroyed door and from the compartment underneath extracted a large black cube, smooth and shiny. Scott was very excited.
So, if I understand correctly, there is a black hole in there.
You call it a black hole, black star, alpha singularity. However, that's what we'll need to make that star collapse.
Notby made as if to caress the artifact.
Even if, unfortunately, it can no longer carry me home, never again.
Later, on the bridge.
Captain.
After a long conversation in a low voice between them, the elderly Vulcan placed a hand on his young counterpart's shoulders.
We would like to ask you something.
Tell me, Ambassador, what is troubling you?
This ship does not have a name.
Kirk was dumbfounded for a moment.
Is it important?
We believe it is, and no one has more right to baptize her than you. A ship without a name is also, without a soul, Kirk,
added the young Spock.
It doesn't seem like a statement dictated by logic.
Captain.
Kirk raised both hands towards the Vulcans.
Okay. I can't find any wrong. Let's see.
The young captain remained absorbed for a moment, until a smile reached his lips.
Okay, maybe a nice name is really necessary.
Bounty? Botany Bay? Jolly Rogers?
McCoy found it irresistible to insert himself into the conversation.
Finally, even these two icicles with pointy ears have expressed a good idea, a very human one at that.
Doctor, but do you have to always be so over the top?
Said the elderly Spock.
Kobayashi Maru.
Everyone turned to look at Kirk.
Yes, Kobayashi Maru. I find it auspicious, don't you believe?
Chekhov, hidden by his console, forcefully looked for some wood to touch. There were no ceremonies or bottles of champagne thrown against the hull. Kirk simply noted in the log that their ship, the ship that should have been called Enterprise, had been renamed Kobayashi Maru. Sulu could not help but point out that in Japanese the term, Maru, meant a commercial vessel, as it had been since the time when it was the Earth's oceans, not infinite space, that served as the stage for long and dangerous journeys far from land.
We are not a military ship. We are not a transport ship, and we cannot even define ourselves as pirates, even if it is the legal condition most similar to ours.
Kirk spoke calmly and inspiringly to those on the bridge.
Frankly, I see this vessel as an explorer of the unknown. What we are doing, in fact, we only partially grasp. We have decided, against everyone and everything, to sacrifice our entire existence, the goals achieved and the expectations, to a cause that, in the best case scenario, will see our actions and our very existence fade into memory. Ours is an act of faith that we hope will be well placed.
He inadvertently cast a quick glance towards Notby.
In the hope of avoiding a dramatic future for the Federation and for the entire Alpha Quadrant. We have no certainties, perhaps we have thrown our lives to the wind out of pure madness. And even more so, once again, I want to thank all those who have chosen to abandon the safe path for an uncertain destiny, a destiny of which, probably, we will never even be conscious. I decided, not without irony, of course, to call the ship Kobayashi Maru because, as in the well-known test at the Academy, we too will have no choice. The only difference is that maybe, just maybe, our sacrifice will have meaning, it will give the Federation a future. It won't be a simple aptitude test to see how you deal with death.
Thank you, Captain. Honestly, I had serious doubts about finding people crazy enough to undertake this undertaking.
Elder Spock got up from the console and took a few steps towards the center of the bridge.
Even though I was more than sure that, to have any chance of finding, I should have looked for such madmen among the representatives of the human race.
Kirk laughed, but everyone noticed that it was a bitter laugh. Meanwhile, in the weapons depot, Scott watched Captain Notby busy tinkering with 1,000 machines around a photon torpedo. Even without a trigger, seeing a multi-kiloton device being manipulated worried him a little.
So, are you replacing the mass detonator with your cube? The procedure isn't entirely clear to me.
It pains me to tell you, Scott.
Notby raised his face for a moment from the printed circuit board on which he had been working for some time.
But I doubt I can explain my actions to you without bringing up a few centuries of technological progress yet to come.
Scotty seemed to darken for a moment.
Maybe you could waste a little more time.
Yes, time.
The captain completely abandoned the workstation and came face to face with the Scotsman.
We are working precisely on time, engineer. On present, past and future time, on relative time and on time. Perceived and, paradoxically, what we lack is precisely time. Sarek's 12 hours are up and we are at the mercy of the entire fleet. It's only a matter of time before they intercept us and blow us to smithereens, and I have no time for lessons of any kind. I apologize if I seem rude to you, but I am sure you will understand my point of view.
The engineer heaved a long sigh.
As you wish, Captain, but you have to explain one thing to me anyway, assuming that you want to implode a star. I imagine that this modified torpedo will have to reach as much as possible inside the star itself, possibly in the center. We do not possess any technology capable of bringing this device into the core of a star. There is no armor, there are no shields or anything else that can counter the enormous, unimaginable power of those fusion furnaces. How do you think you can do it?
Notby remained silent and returned to his circuits.